Karpanyat, because of affection and love. Skandena, by the shoulder. Udvahati, carries. Evam, in this way. Utsange, sometimes on the lap. Purasi, on the chest while sleeping. Cha, also. Adaya, keeping. Upalalayan, fondling. Mudam, pleasure. Paramam, very great. Avapa, he felt. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. When entering the forest, the animal would appear very attractive to Maharaja Bharata due to its childish behavior. Maharaja Bharata would even take the deer on his shoulders and carry it due to affection. His heart was so filled with great love for the deer that he would sometimes keep it on his lap or, when sleeping, on his chest. In this way, he felt great pleasure in fondling the animal. Purport. Maharaja Bharata left his home, wife, children, kingdom, and everything else to advance his spiritual life in the forest. But again, he fell victim to material affection due to his attachment to an insignificant pet deer. What then was the use of his renouncing his family? One who is serious in advancing his spiritual life should be very cautious not to become attached to anything but Krishna. Sometimes, in order to preach, we have to accept many material activities, but we should remember that everything is for Krishna. If we remember this, there is no chance of our being victimized by material activities. One more time, the translation. When entering the forest, the animal would appear very attractive to Maharaja Bharata due to his childish behavior. Maharaja Bharata would even take the deer on his shoulders and carry it due to affection. His heart was so filled with great love for the deer that he would sometimes keep it on his lap or when sleeping on his chest. In this way, he felt great pleasure in fondling the animal. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we continue with this amazing story from Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of Maharaja Bharata. And we heard how Maharaja Bharata was amazing personality, such a great person, such a charitable personality, and he performed such a great penances and austerities that even till nowadays the earth is known as Bharatavarsha. So extremely great personality. And actually, in one place in the purport of the Acharyas, it is mentioned that when he left his kingdom, he was only around 23, 24 years old. So very, very young. And still, for these just few years that he was emperor, he managed to create such a great glory. And he managed to perform amazing austerities. So we are speaking about very, very great personality. He was both materially very exalted and spiritually very exalted. And from the purport of Srila Prabhupada, we are getting that Maharaja Bharata, at some point, he became so attracted to Krishna and so detached from everything material that he managed even to leave the great kingdom that he had, his young and beautiful wife, his palace, his children. He left all this just for the sake of progressing, making serious advancement in Krishna consciousness. And that was definitely very, very difficult thing to do. Very difficult thing. Practically speaking, these are some of the greatest attachments from material point of view. Why? Because we have many different material attachments, but many of them, they are, we don't have a deep relationship with them, in the sense that we use things like we have different commodities or gadgets in this world, and we are using them, but they don't have attachment to us. So then if you have to give them up, in a sense, it's much easier. But now with relatives, with wife, with children, with close personalities, the connection is even much deeper, because it's a two-way relationship. Sometimes you may feel, oh, I'm very detached, but the other side may act in such a way that actually you understand, wait a minute, actually I'm not so detached as I'm thinking. Now in one place in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada is saying, wife, children, relatives, these are natural objects of attachment. But here in the verse we are finding interesting word, Visakta Mati, whose mind was too much attracted. So the point was that Bharata Maharaj, at some point, he became too much attracted to the deer, and there was imbalance. We are living in this world, and we have to be, I mean, it's natural to be attached to the things with which you are having connection to an extent. But now, if this attachment becomes so strong that it removes devotional service from our life completely, or makes our spiritual life and devotional service goes on the second place in our life, or third place, or fifth place, then that's a problem. Why it is problem? Because it shows that our material attachments, they'll be stronger than our spiritual attachments. And then at the time of death, most probably we will think about something else, not about Krishna and activities connected with Krishna. So that was one big problem. Bharat Maharaj, he managed to get rid of predominant attachment to all these objects, and he went to live in the forest, and still he became attached to something else material. And again, his devotion to Krishna gradually went on a second place. So that was a problem. That's why Srila Prabhupada is making the point in the purport. If Maharaja Bharata allowed to become attached again to a insignificant pet deer, then Srila Prabhupada is saying, What then was the use of his renouncing his family? So he did such a great task by renouncing this object of attachment, which is very, very difficult to give up. And still he became attached to something much more insignificant. This is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining. Srila Prabhupada then says, one who is serious in advancing in spiritual life should be very cautious not to become attached to anything material. Again, we'll have different material things in our life. We cannot avoid this because we are living in the material world. And actually, quite few of them, we really need them. It's not just a question of whimsical thing, or I just want to enjoy this thing. No, we need certain things in our life. Now the question is, are we going to allow these things to become so dear to us so that we forget about Krishna? If this is the case, then this is a problem. Krishna consciousness should always stay in the first place in the life of a devotee. And yes, devotee can do many other things. Devotee can have a nice house. Devotee can have a nice family. Devotee can have money. And devotee can be part of the outside society. All this is fine if we keep the proper balance that Krishna is on the first place in our life and everything else is on the second place. How can we understand this? How can we understand practically what is more important for us? If Krishna consciousness is more important, or our other engagements, activities, things that we consider important and we have to do in our life? Well, when the time of choice comes, then we can understand what we are going to choose. Are we going to choose Krishna as the first priority in our life, or we are going to choose something else? So now the case may be that sometimes we choose Krishna and sometimes we choose something else, which, okay, it's fine. But at least let's make sure that most of the time Krishna is first and other things are secondary. This will be quite a good, steady basis to practice Krishna consciousness. It will be easy to be steady in our spiritual life if we act in this way. Now, if we come to the point that every time we have to make a choice, we are choosing Krishna and everything else is always secondary, that's great. That means we are now really approaching a pure devotion level, because that means pure devotee. Pure devotee means every time he's choosing Krishna. Every time he's choosing Krishna. With us, the case sometimes may be like that, sometimes maybe a little bit different. It's just like practically every day we try to chant and we start our japa session in the morning, and then we have to make a choice. What is the choice? The choice is the choice that the mind is giving us. Basically, now we are chanting Hare Krishna. We are chanting the holy names of Krishna, which are the most sacred objects in the three worlds. And now we have to make the choice. Am I going to focus my attention on Krishna and his names? And am I going to reciprocate in a loving relationship with the holy name of Krishna? Or I will chant the holy name of Krishna, but actually I have so many other important things to think of. And even some of them are even more important than the chanting of Hare Krishna. Then we have to make this choice. And from this choice actually will depend so much that will be happening in our day later. From this choice, the choice that we are making during our chanting. Now, when we were with Pandava Prabhu in Gita Nagari, we had the fortune to hear the amazing evening class of the Amrita Maharaj. And a few times he was putting the stress on chanting. Chanting is very, very, very important. And when we had a personal darshan with Maharaj, he actually told us this. He said, so how long time you are devotees? With Pandava, we said, well, maybe like 25, 26 years. He said, okay, so that means you are already senior devotees. So now it's the time to go deeply in your spiritual life, to go deeper in your spiritual life. Now you have to become more serious about your chanting, about your reading. Pay nice attention to the chanting of the holy name. So every morning we have to make this choice. Every morning we have to make the choice. Am I going to give my time and my attention first to Krishna and then everything else? Or rather, okay, let me give my priority to this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. And then at some point, I will give my time and attention to Krishna. Or maybe if it happens that these things are so many and so important, or maybe today I won't be able to give my time and attention to Krishna. Maybe I'll have to leave it for tomorrow. That's the choice we have to make every day. And we can see actually the days that we decide to make the conscious choice, no, let me choose Krishna, let me choose relationship with Krishna, our chanting will go on a different level. And the times when we decide just to go through our chanting, this will be the times that we won't be happy with our chanting, with our morning practice. So this is an important moment. Sometimes we chant, but acharyas call this offering lip service. Why lip service? Because with our lips, with our mouth, we pronounce the name of Krishna, but actually our mind is somewhere else. Our mind is thinking about something else. Very often it happens that we chant Hare Krishna and our mouth is saying Krishna, but our mind is thinking about something else, totally different. And then our heart is desiring something else, totally different. And then Krishna becomes confused. He doesn't know, so which one to listen now? The chanting of the mouth, or the chanting of the mind, or the chanting of the heart? Which one of the three? So Krishna is confused. He doesn't know how to reciprocate with us. And sometimes we pray to Krishna and whatever we want to happen, it doesn't happen. And then we say, oh, Krishna doesn't reciprocate with my desire. Krishna actually, he doesn't know what actually I want. But maybe he does. Just maybe he's listening what we are saying with our heart, not with our lips. If someone can chant the holy names of Krishna and at the same time with great determination, he can engage his mind, being there, being focused, be present in the chanting, thinking about Krishna. And at the same time, he engaged his heart, his desires, to desire to serve Krishna, desire to listen to the holy names of Krishna. Then such kind of personality is known as saintly person, saintly personality. This is one definition of saintly personality. Someone who there is no difference between his words, his thoughts, and his desires. It's all the same. He will speak something, he will think about the same thing, and he will desire the same thing. So this is we are hoping that in the future we will be able to act on this level. And the interesting thing about Maharaja Bharata was that practically he was on this level. He was on such advanced level in spiritual life that he was able to act in this way. Acharyas are saying that technically he was on the level of Bhava. So he really had this strong love and attachment to Krishna in his heart, and his mind was totally focused on his worship, his chanting of mantras. And that's why while he was performing his worship, he was showing ecstatic symptoms. He was crying, or his body was shivering. So he was on this great advanced level. And still somehow, again, he became excessively attached to, as Srila Prabhupada is saying, to insignificant pet deer. Now Acharyas are saying that one reason why this happened is that Bharat Maharaj did not have enough Vaishnava association, because practically he was alone in the forest, and he was, although nicely situated in his spiritual practice, the problem was he didn't have other sadhus around him. So yeah, that's also a great lesson for us, that it is very difficult to be steady in spiritual life unless you have a spiritual community around you. It can be just devotees in the temple if you are living in the temple, or it can be a spiritual community like Gita Nagari. You have many devotees who live with you in the temple or around you as a community, or the community that you go once in a week or 2 times in a week in the temple, but you meet the devotees and you eagerly associate with them and learn interesting things from them about Krishna consciousness and become inspired to continue with your spiritual practice. So this is very, very important. Many, many times this topic is discussed in the assembly of Vaishnavas, that without a proper sadhu sangha or Vaishnava association, it is very, very difficult to stay steady in spiritual life and to make steady advancement in spiritual life. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making an interesting point. He's saying that according to how much Vaishnava association, sadhu sangha we have in our spiritual life, we will go back in our spiritual life, we will stay on the same level, or we will make spiritual advancement. If our sadhu sangha is intense, then this will help us to make steady spiritual advancement. If our sadhu sangha is not very much present in our spiritual life, we may gradually start feeling that our taste for spiritual life disappears and we start going backwards, meaning we are developing more and more material attachments and losing more and more our spiritual attachments. Or if we have equal amounts of sadhu sangha and material association in our life, we may just stay predominantly on the same level spiritually. Of course, gradually we'll make some spiritual advancement, but it may be very, very slow. So we may not be able even to notice what's happening in our spiritual life. So that's very interesting point. It shows how we have to value and we have to look as much as possible for the association of devotees, Vaishnavas, and especially like-minded Vaishnavas. What does it mean, like-minded Vaishnavas? According to the Acharyas, it means first, Vaishnavas who are our well-wishers. Second, Vaishnavas that are senior. And Vaishnavas with which we can have a nice spiritual exchanges. It means it's easy to speak with them about Krishna consciousness. So Vaishnava association, very, very important, and especially the association of like-minded Vaishnavas, also very, very important. So this is one thing we can get from this situation. Stay always close to the Vaishnavas. One time I was in Mayapur and I was present on a classes Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj was giving Bhakti Vaibhava classes. So he was speaking exactly on 5th canto, and he was discussing exactly this pastime with Bharata Maharaj. And then he started giving some light on exactly this point, the attachment of Bharata Maharaj to the deer. And then he asked us, he said, do you know what is the deer in the modern age, in our times? What is the deer? What is this attachment that is actually stopping us from make rapid, serious spiritual advancement? Of course, I'm sure you'll guess many things. If someone likes, can try and guess. I'll be happy to hear your suggestions, if you have any. What is the deer in the modern age? So Jayadvaita Maharaj said, the deer, of course, that was many years ago. That was maybe 12, 13 years ago. He said, the deer, this is our computer. Yes, exactly, Gari Krishna Prabhu. And nowadays, because we are even more advanced, now it's our mobile phone. And yes, we can actually see practically how often our attention is getting diverted from Krishna, from our devotional service, from our spiritual practice, and goes to our phone. I mean, nowadays, even very serious devotees, it's amazing to see. We can see in ourselves also. It's like amazing. Every whatever, like few minutes or, okay, let's be a little bit more generous, half an hour. You have to look at your phone. You have to look. What's happening there? Or maybe someone is writing something very, very important. It's so important that you cannot wait even half an hour more. Have to immediately see. I have to immediately answer. And in this way, we become consciously, we create this serious material attachment that brings our mind again and again to things different from Krishna. And it's very strong, actually. It's really strong attachment. So with one devotee, we were speaking just some days ago that, well, what's happening? Looks like we are also getting attached to our phones. It's amazing. Spending so much time with your phone. Like one devotee just some days ago, he was checking. You know, you have this option on the phone. You can check For 1 week, every day, average, how much time you spend on your phone? And he was very much surprised to see that he's spending more than 4 hours on his phone every day. And most of this time is not like listening kirtans or classes. Okay, maybe something, but most of this time is just spacing out, like watching who knows what kind of strange things. So yeah, we are getting attached. Big part of our attention is getting diverted into this direction. So with one devotee, we were thinking, okay, let's try maybe from the next month of July, to gradually start making some change in this direction. And what we decided is, okay, let's try not look at our phones at least till we finish our main part of our spiritual practice in the morning. So let's say, let's wait at least until like at least 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30. Just do something substantial, spiritual as the beginning of your day. Finish most of your rounds or do few rounds and read for half an hour Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, then, only then, look at your phone and see which are really important things to do. And actually, if we do that, it may happen that we can see that many things that actually we were thinking they are very, very important and urgently we have to deal with them, they are actually not so important. It may happen this, maybe we will get this realization. And then also in the evening, let's not go to sleep with our phones. Let's just close up shop at some reasonable timing. Let's say, okay, whatever you have to do with your phone, do it to, let's say, whatever, eight, maybe for the people who are in the city, okay, 9, and then job done. It's enough. It's enough. Now let's spend again some time with Krishna. Take a Krishna book, take Srimad Bhagavatam, take Bhagavad Gita, take the biography of Prabhupada and read something Krishna conscious and cool down and put some nice thoughts in your mind and go to sleep peacefully. At least that much. Okay, we gave enough hours to do all the important things with our phone, like from 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening, 12 hours. This should be more than enough to do all the important things for this day. And if there is something else very important, okay, maybe we just say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow morning. It's not the end of the world. Because actually many of the things that we think they are very, very, very important, they are not so important. One devotee, maybe some of you know him, senior brahmachari, Yugal Kishore Prabhu from Michigan. He comes and spends time here in the New York temple. So he gave a nice presentation some time ago. And he was explaining how to make a nice time management in our lifestyle. And he was separating things that we have to do every day in 4 categories. So these 4 categories, let me see if I can remember. Hopefully Krishna will give me remembrance and knowledge. So the first category is things which are very important and very urgent. So something which really needs our attention and needs our attention now, immediately. We have to do it. So these are the things that we have to address in our day-to-day life because they are very important and they are urgent. Like, for example, taking care of the cows. It's very important and it's urgent. Like you cannot say, oh, I won't take the care for the cows. Now I'll do it after 10 hours or tomorrow. You cannot do that. Important and urgent. Or cooking for the deities or whatever, like making Guru Puja important and urgent, have to be done now at exact time. Now there are other things which are very important, but they are not urgent. So these things we can make a notice. Oh, this is something very, very important. I have to plan it, but no need to do it now. Let's say we have a yoga retreat with Audarya Dhamma Prabhu, but the retreat is after 1 month. So it's very important, but maybe I may not start the organization today. Maybe I can plan when to start. Okay, I need 2 weeks to organize or 3 weeks. So, okay, I'll start paying serious time and attention to this thing from the next week. So it's important things, but they're not urgent. We have to plan them. And then there are other things which they look very, very, very urgent, but actually they are not at all important. And the example that he gave is like with our social media. The phone somehow creates this amazing vibe that it is so important and so urgent, and you have to take the call now, or you have to answer now, immediately. And if you don't do it, there'll be like a world catastrophe or something like that. But actually, the reality is that it is not at all like that. Like 99% of the messages we are getting, notifications we are getting, they are not at all urgent. And they are not really important. So, yeah, the phone has this power to drag our attention and to make us think that these things are so urgent and we have to do it now. And because of that, actually, many of the urgent, really important things, they go on a second place. So if something is not so urgent, we may deal with it later. And then the fourth category of things is if something is not important and not urgent, maybe just get rid of it. Maybe just wasting your time and energy. Just get rid of it. So, yeah, he was saying that actually people who are super successful in life, they know how to prioritize and put the things in these four categories. And that's why they're using their time very wisely, and they are very productive people. Now they may be very productive mainly in material sphere of life, but the principle is the same. If we learn the principle, that means we'll be able to be very, very productive in our spiritual life as well, and also in our material life. So we have to be very careful with this gear of the modern age. Our phone, which is constantly in our pocket. Shiva Kadambakana Maharaj, one time he was saying, we have to be very careful to make our phone a devotee. Why? Because we are associating so much with it. With him. If he is not a devotee, that means we are spending so much time with a non-devotee. And then it will be a problem because we are getting bad association that is going to drag us down. So what means to make our phone a devotee? Well, what we are getting from our phone should be devotional. Like we have to use our phone to see things connected with Krishna, to listen kirtans, to listen classes, to see images connected with Krishna or with the devotees of Krishna. Then this will be very favorable for our spiritual advancement. And now, if we are using our phone for watching so many other things, actually it will damage our spiritual consciousness. And gradually, we will experience the things that Bharata Maharaj will read in the future experience. In other words, his Krishna consciousness gradually starts diminishing, going down and down and down. And his material attachment starts going Up and up and up. And the last thing I wanted to address is Srila Prabhupada is speaking the last sentence of the purport. Sometimes in order to preach, we have to accept many material activities. But we should remember that everything is for Krishna. If we remember this, there is no chance of our being victimized by material activities. So we are living in the modern age and there are so many material stuff going on around us. And we know our principle, the principle that we are trying to follow, that we learn from Srila Prabhupada, is the principle of Yukta Vairagya, means we are not trying just to renounce the things, but rather we are trying, we personally, to be detached from the material things, but at the same time use them for the pleasure of Krishna. And this is considered the highest way of renunciation. Yukta Vairagya. We can use so many things for the pleasure of Krishna. Like in the modern world, we are using so much technology, cars, planes, computers, so many things. Still, we have to be conscious. We have to analyze ourselves from time to time that we are using these things for the pleasure of Krishna, and that we are remembering that they are meant for the pleasure of Krishna. Because otherwise, very gradually our focus can be changed. And we may start using many material things, but actually maybe not so much for Krishna, maybe because actually we are attached to them. But we are saying, oh, Prabhu, it's for Krishna. It's 100% for Krishna. Otherwise, I'm totally detached. I don't need these things. So from time to time, it's very good to analyze ourselves and see actually why I'm doing this. Am I doing it for myself or I'm doing it for Krishna? And then if we always remember that, no, actually it should be for Krishna, then we are safe. Then Maya won't be able to touch us easily. And now, if we actually analyzing, we see that, wait a minute, maybe here the motivation is a little bit mixed. I'm doing it for Krishna, but also I'm doing it for myself. So, like, for example, why I bought exactly this kind of car. I bought it because it's the favorite car of Krishna, or it reminds me of Krishna, or is the best vehicle I can use for the Krishna service, or I bought it because actually, well, since I was a 5-year-old kid, actually that was my favorite car. So the whole life I had the dream of having this car and driving it fast on the highway. And now finally Krishna fulfilled my desire. And anyway, if we see that our motivation is mixed, no worries. That's not the end of the world. But then that means consciously we should start working. We should start working so that at the end of life, only the Krishna part left. And the attachment part dissolved, disappeared. And then this would mean that we are ready to go back to the spiritual world. Everything for Krishna and nothing for me. Kadamba Kanana Maharaj, he was telling an interesting story. Actually, I confirm it with Kadamba Kanana Maharaj, but I heard it from the devotee himself. When Kadamba Kanana Maharaj had some issues in Vrindavan, he was shot actually, and he had to spend some time back in Amsterdam. And a nice devotee joined the temple. And anyway, Maharaj was there for a long time. So he was training this new bhakta. He was giving him a good training after being for such a long time in India. And so the name of this devotee was Bhakta Duncan at that time. And he was telling me, Maharaj, he was training me very seriously. He was giving me always the highest possible standard. And he was telling me constantly one thing. I remember it and I will never forget it. He was telling me, Duncan, remember, everything for Krishna, nothing for Duncan. Okay? Everything for Krishna, nothing for Duncan. So maybe now practically we may not be on this level, everything for Krishna and nothing for me. But at least theoretically, we should know, okay, this is the standard that we want to reach. And we have to start working consciously, making small steps, small changes in our life, gradually more and more and more and more, so that we are actually able at the end of life to see, okay, now all my attachments, they are connected with Krishna and not with Maya. And then this will be the success in our life. This will help us to make the next step, go closer to Krishna, go back to the spiritual world by the mercy of our Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, dear devotees, for your attention. If anyone wants to say something or ask something, please. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you for a wonderful class. Made a whole bunch of really nice and valuable points. You inspired lots of self-reflection and examination. This point about cell phones and computers is a very important point. I know that personally, I don't use a phone a lot, but I kind of live in front of my PC, and while it helps me a lot, I know that it also consumes a lot of my time and also hurts in various ways. You know, there was a time when, of course, there was no internet, devotees had none of these devices, and we're just simply engaged in service all the time. We didn't even use telephones, very rarely. Srila Prabhupada discouraged us from the expenditure of making a phone call. And phone calls were relatively inexpensive at the time. You could make a phone call for 10 cents, but Srila Prabhupada was very frugal. And at one point, the devotees considered getting a teletype machine, which it was the precursor to texting. It enabled you to send a text message inexpensively over the phone lines. And Srila Prabhupada advised them not to get a teletype machine. He said the devotees will just use it for gossiping. But eventually, some key temples did get teletype machines, and one thing led to another. And before long, there were computers and all different types of means of communication. And we established email networks and online forums, and wasn't long before devotees were expending tremendous amounts of time just in electronic communications, which we know is unnecessary, because for maybe the first 10 years of the movement, none of that was going on, but the movement was booming. We made so much progress, so much service was done, and the movement expanded exponentially, largely because we didn't waste any time with all of these things. Anyway, I had a quick question for you. You mentioned the fact that Maharaj Bharata was quite young at the time that he had this encounter with the deer. And so I'm confused about this, because in previous verses we read that that Maharaj Bharata, what was it? It was text. Oh gosh, I can't remember what the text was now. It said that destiny fixed the time for Maharaj's enjoyment, Bharata Maharaj's enjoyment of material opulence at 1,000 times 10,000 years. So that's 10 million years he was engaged in family life and administering to the kingdom before he retired. So how is it possible that he was still a young person?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Prabhu, for the question. I heard this from Pandava Prabhu, who was working quite a lot on making the materials for study of Bhagavatam. So maybe I can confirm with him. We can see where exactly this is stated, and then maybe in the next class next week I can mention some more details, if that's okay with you. We can
Sure.
this discussion. But yeah, what you are saying, it's brings interesting question, because yeah, these personalities, they were not living our span of life, huh? Just like 60 years, 80 years, 90 years. They were living much, much longer. So I will try to find and I will come back with more information.
Thank you. Yeah, that was Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 7th chapter, text 8, states that it was 10 million years of royal opulence before he renounced the kingdom.
578. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll read the verse.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Very much. And Agari Krishna Prabhu maybe wants to say something.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Haribo.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for the wonderful class. I was just thinking, about modern electronic this point on modern electronic communication and the devices we use as being the deer. And when you look at the primary use of the internet, it's actually, or at least the top 5 companies that are making a lot of money from the public internet. They're using it primarily for advertising. So the whole business model is based on screen time. So they want to optimize your screen time. So Facebook, Google, Netflix. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur can be quoted as saying, the 11th offense of being inattentive whilst chanting, all the other offenses can be resolved just simply by being attentive. So it seems like Kali is doubling down on, making people, just capturing people's attention. And in this way, they actually can't focus. So even both in material affairs, just, conducting material affairs, one loses out so much of potency, and also what to speak of in spiritual life. One actually maintains so many material attachments. So my question is, with the public internet really being now designed for just capturing your attention, can devotees actually, release themselves from this? So, for example, there's a technology called micro-targeting. So the idea is that they use different personality typologies. So, for example, if you're introverted, extroverted, neurotic, or, so they're able to, just by tracking your movement on the internet, what you're clicking on, they can actually detect within, I think this was about 3 years ago, within an 85% probability accuracy, they're able to tell what kind of personality you are. Right? I think now that's increased. So basically, when they're putting adverts or content on your feed, it's basically agitating your false ego. Like, it's going right to the core in terms of what one is actually attracted to. And so this feeling that something is urgent, something is important, it's very difficult to actually overcome. And that's why they're speaking about creating laws, basically to regulate these technologies, because they are really preying on something that's really fundamental. and that is characteristics of the false ego. They now develop technologies on how to just attract um, the false ego. So can devotees actually overcome this? Because it's just like, it seems like impossible. Just like, you know, if one tries to, one can say the holy name is very powerful and try to become like Haridas Thakur and, you know, just be oblivious to illicit sex, but and the agitations of it, but it's so powerful that you can't. It's just too difficult. It's insurmountable. So, in your estimation, would you say that use of the public internet by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is just, it's an insurmountable technology, just as the other pillars of sin, which Kali is maintaining in this age through mass slaughterhouses, through pornography online, through alcohol. These things we purposefully avoid. So would you say that, suppose you are all-powerful Kshatriya, would you just like say, okay, devotees should vow not to actually use the public internet as it is right now, because it's just too strong for our, yeah, it's too influential on our false egos.
Wow, that's a serious question. Okay, I'll answer shortly because we are out of time. My thoughts are that it's very important why you're using the internet. I think if we are predominantly using it for preaching purposes, it won't have a big problem. Of course, some influence is always there, but we'll be able to kind of keep ourselves not so much contaminated. It's just like going on the street. It's basically the same thing. Internet is like a virtual street. Once you're on the street, you're going to see all kinds of strange things in the nowadays world, especially in the West. Everything is there. So you are basically influenced in the same way. Now the question is, are you there to do a Krishna's business, or you are there just to hang out? And if you're there just to hang out, well, there is a big opportunity that some advertisement will get your attention. Some advertisement will get your attention. But now if you're there to do Krishna's business, let's say you are with the books there and you know, okay, I have to distribute some books. Something will get your attention, but you think, wait a minute, I don't have time because I am here to accomplish something. So this will protect you, actually. So if we are very clear that we are on a mission, then it's easier. If we are just floating around in internet, then it will be very, very difficult. Now to institutionalize it the way how you are saying, whew, I don't know. Maybe in the future, why not? We may have places like Gita Nagari where people actually live very simple lifestyle and they decide in between themselves, okay, let's have a certain policy so that we can protect ourselves. But just like to let's say, to have a resolution, GBC resolution, okay, from 1st of July 2023, all initiated devotees in ISKCON are not allowed to use internet except for this. Wow, this will be radical, huh? Many devotees may decide to leave the movement because of that. So, and we see the example of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, Taraka Prabhu, of course, gave this nice example with the technology in the beginning of ISKCON and how Srila Prabhupada actually said to the devotees to be very careful. But at the same time, we see he was very much using the modern technology to spread Krishna consciousness, right? Printing presses, cars, airplanes. And if we don't use these things, it will be difficult to keep up with the Maya of the modern age, actually. Like if we say, okay, let's produce the books in the traditional way, we'll hire 100 brahmanas and let's write Bhagavad Gita. And after 1 year, we'll have 100 Bhagavad Gitas for book distribution. It will be difficult to keep up. Everything is so intense in the modern age. So one way to counteract is we have to use the weapons of the modern age, but use them to spread Krishna consciousness. But still, like, devotees, they have to be very careful, because we see that we are losing many soldiers because of this influence of Maya, of the modern technology. One time, Kadamba Kanal Maharaj was saying something very interesting. He was saying, I personally feel, and that's why I'm doing it, every year devotees, they should go and spend some time in some of the holy places like Vrindavan or Mayapur, or let's say a place like Gitanagari. Just go there and then don't say, oh, Prabhu, I'm now using in Yukta Vairagya everything for Krishna. No, rather just get rid of all these things for a month or two. Do a digital detox. Remove all these things from your life and spend a month or two without your phone, or just get rid of internet on your phone. And then actually we'll have the strength to control these things and to use them for Krishna, rather than these things controlling us. And then it's not sure if we're using them for Krishna or they're using us for whatever modern purposes. Okay, I think it's a big topic, and I think it's very, very important. It's a practical topic. So you can make sometimes some discussion in Gita Nagari on this topic. Maybe you'll come to the idea. Maybe you'll be the first ones to offer a digital detox retreat in Gita Nagari. Come and spend the weekend without your phone. Well, I think this will be like amazing experience, huh?
Thank you so much, Ruby. Really appreciate your wisdom and insight.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much for everyone kind listening and attention, and hope to see you next week again soon. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, go Vanchaka Putrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.